How did my own brother run from child support for years, then return like a hero, while our mom helped him take his ex to court? Why did everyone think I would stay quiet like always, even when an innocent child was the one paying the price? My name is Evan Ketteridge, and I am 38 years old. I work the night-to-morning shift as a warehouse supervisor, which means I see the city wake up through break room windows while most people are still dreaming. I have always been the reliable one in my family, the one who shows up, the one who keeps his mouth shut, the one who gets used. My brother Darian is 3 years older than me, and for as long as I can remember, he has been the special one. The golden child, the one with charm and big plans and a smile that made our mother forget every broken promise he ever made. I was drinking coffee in the warehouse break room when my phone buzzed with a group message. Family thread. I knew before I even looked that it was going to be bad. Darian is back. Let's all help him get through this difficult time. That was my mother, Marla. 64 years old, retired from an office administrator job, and still running the family like a marketing campaign. Every message from her sounded like a press release. I stared at the screen. Darian had been gone for years. Not missing, not lost, gone. He left when his girlfriend Tessa got pregnant, and he stayed gone while she raised their son alone. No support, no calls, no explanations that made sense. But now he was back, and apparently that was cause for celebration. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I finished my shift, went home, showered, and tried to sleep. My phone kept buzzing. More family messages, more excitement, more praise for the prodigal son who had finally decided to grace us with his presence. By evening, I gave up on rest and drove to my mother's house. Marla's living room always smelled like vanilla candles and social ambition. She had photos on every surface, most of them featuring Darian at various ages, smiling like the world owed him applause just for existing. There were a few photos of me, too, tucked into corners, looking serious and forgettable. Darian was sitting on the couch when I arrived, wearing a casual button-down shirt and jeans that probably cost more than my rent. He stood up and grinned. "Evan, my guy, come here, man." He pulled me into a hug that felt like performance art. I stood there, stiff, and waited for it to end. "Good to see you," I said, because that is what you say. "Man, it is so good to be home." Darian sat back down and stretched his arms across the back of the couch like he owned the place. "You have no idea how much I miss this." Marla walked in from the kitchen carrying a tray of snacks that no one had asked for. Her face was bright with pride and relief, like Darian had returned from war instead of just deciding to show up after years of avoiding responsibility. "Isn't it wonderful?" she said, looking at me. "Our family is whole again." I nodded. I did not trust my voice yet. Darian launched into a story about where he had been. He made it sound like an adventure, misunderstandings, bad timing, people who did not get him. He spoke with the kind of confidence that made you forget to ask for specifics. I listened and noticed the details that did not add up. He said he had been working in construction out west, but his hands were smooth. He said he had been staying with friends, but he did not name any of them. He said he had wanted to come back sooner, but things were complicated. Things were always complicated with Darian. "I just need a little time to get back on my feet," he said, looking at Marla with puppy dog eyes. "And then I can start making things right." Marla nodded eagerly. "Of course, sweetheart. We are all here to help you." I wondered if making things right included the child he had not seen in 8 years. Later that week, Marla arranged a family dinner at a neighborhood diner. It was her favorite spot for public displays of unity. She invited half the extended family and a few people from her church group. The diner was loud and crowded, and I sat at the end of the table watching Darian hold court. He told stories, he laughed, he made jokes, everyone ate it up. Then he started talking about Tessa. Look, I am not going to trash her, Darian said, raising his hands like he was being reasonable. But let's be real. She made things impossible. Every time I tried to help, she had conditions. She wanted control. She wanted everything her way. Marla nodded along, her face tight with concern. She was very difficult, she said. Darian did his best, but some people just don't want to cooperate. I felt something twist in my chest. I had been at family dinners when Tessa was pregnant. I had watched Darian promise to step up, then vanish the moment things got hard. I had seen Marla rewrite history in real time, turning Darian's cowardice into Tessa's fault. Darian looked down the table at me. Evan, you remember, right? You were there. You saw how she acted. Everyone turned to look at me. I felt the weight of expectation, the unspoken rule that I was supposed to nod and agree and play my role as the loyal brother. I took a sip of water and said nothing. Darian's smile tightened. Come on, man. You know I'm telling the truth. I remember it differently, I said quietly. The table went silent for a moment. Then Marla laughed, a high, nervous sound. Evan, you were always so serious. You take everything so literally. Darian leaned back and shook his head, smiling like I was a child who did not understand the adult conversation. It's fine. Evan's just being Evan. The conversation moved on. I stayed quiet, but I noticed the way Darian kept glancing at me, like he was calculating something. After dinner, Darian pulled me aside in the parking lot. His friendly mask was still in place, but his eyes were sharper now. Hey, I need to talk to you about something, he said. I waited. Tessa and I are going to court, he said. She's been making things difficult, and we need to straighten some things out. Legal stuff, support payments, custody arrangements. You know. I knew. I knew that Darian owed years of back support. I knew that he had ignored every notice. I knew that he was not trying to make things right. He was trying to rewrite the story so he came out looking like the victim. Mom's helping me with the legal costs, Darian continued. She knows this is important. Family is important. What do you want from me? I asked. Just support, man, that's all. If it comes down to it, I might need you to back me up. Tell them what really happened. Tell them Tessa was the problem. I looked at him, really looked at him, and I realized that he genuinely believed I would do it. He believed that family loyalty meant lying for him, covering for him, protecting him from the consequences of his own choices. I'll think about it, I said. Darian clapped me on the shoulder. That's my guy. I knew I could count on you. He walked back toward the diner, leaving me standing in the parking lot under the yellow streetlights. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I opened the message. This is Tessa. If they ask you to testify, will you tell the truth? I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I put my phone away and drove home. That night I sat in my small kitchen with a cup of coffee and thought about Milo. Darian and Marla talked about him like he was a prop in their drama, a bargaining chip, a problem to be managed. But Milo was a real child, 8 years old, growing up without a father because his father chose to run. I thought about all the times I had stayed quiet, all the times I had let Darian's lies slide because it was easier than fighting, all the times I had played the role of the reliable, obedient brother who never caused trouble. I was tired of being safe. The coffee went cold in my hands, and I sat there in the silence, feeling something shift inside me. Not anger, not yet. Just a quiet recognition that I was done. I did not sleep well that night. I kept thinking about timelines, dates, sequences of events. That is what happens when you work a job that runs on schedules and time clocks. You start to see everything in terms of when things happened and what came next. Darian had always been bad with timelines. He told stories that sounded good in the moment, but if you actually tried to line them up with reality, they fell apart. He relied on people not paying attention. He relied on charm and confidence and the assumption that no one would bother to check. I had spent my whole life watching him get away with it. When we were kids, Darian was the one who got praised for trying, even when he failed. I was the one who got praised for succeeding, but only when I did not make a fuss about it. Marla had a way of making Darian's failures sound like noble attempts, and my successes sound like basic expectations. Darian is so creative, she would say. He just needs the right opportunity. Evan is very responsible, she would say. He knows what's expected of him. It was not about ability. It was about narrative. Darian was the protagonist of the family story. I was the supporting character. I remembered the first time I met Tessa. Darian brought her to a family barbecue, and she seemed nice, quiet, a little overwhelmed by the Ketteridge family chaos. She worked in medical billing, and she talked about her job with the kind of steady competence that made me think she was probably good at it. Darian was in one of his fresh start phases. He had a new sales job, a new apartment, a new plan. He talked about the future like it was a movie he was starring in. "This is it, man," he told me that day, nodding toward Tessa. "She's the one. I'm going to do this right." He sounded like he meant it. Maybe he even believed it himself. 3 months later, Tessa was pregnant. I remember the family dinner where they announced it. Marla's face went through a series of expressions: surprise, concern, forced enthusiasm. She hugged Tessa and said all the right things, but I could see the worry in her eyes. Not worry for the baby, worry for Darian. "Are you ready for this?" Marla asked him privately later. "Absolutely," Darian said. "I've got this." He did not have it. The first excuse came a month later. He needed to take a job out of town, just temporary, just to build up some savings before the baby came. "I'll be back before she's due," he promised. Tessa believed him, or maybe she just wanted to. I was working nights at the warehouse then, same as now. I remember getting a call from Tessa at 3 in the morning. She was in labor. Darian's phone was going straight to voicemail. I drove to the hospital. I sat in the waiting room while she went through it alone. When the baby was born, a boy, Milo, I was the one who brought her flowers and baby supplies because I did not know what else to do. "Is he coming?" she asked me, exhausted and holding her newborn son. "I don't know," I said, because that was the truth. Darian showed up 2 days later. He had excuses: traffic, work crisis, phone issues. He held Milo awkwardly, like the baby was a borrowed item he was afraid of breaking, and he took pictures that he posted online with captions about being blessed. Then he disappeared again. Marla defended him at every turn. "He's overwhelmed," she said. "This is a lot of pressure for a young man. Tessa needs to be more understanding." When Tessa asked for support payments, Marla called it greed. When Tessa asked for consistency, Marla called it control. When Tessa finally gave up asking and just focused on surviving, Marla called it proof that she had never really wanted Darian involved. I watched this happen. I said nothing. I told myself it was not my business. But I remembered every lie, every broken promise, every rewritten story. Now sitting in my car in the middle of the night outside my apartment building, I opened the folder on my phone where I kept old messages. I had never been the type to delete things. It was a habit from work, keeping records, documenting issues, making sure there was a trail if something went wrong. I scrolled back through years of family group chats. I found the messages where Darian announced he was leaving town, the messages where he said he would be back in a month, the messages where that month turned into 6 months, then a year, then silence. I found the messages where Marla asked me to check on Tessa and Milo, but only in ways that made it seem like Tessa was the problem. "See if she's being reasonable," Marla would write, as if reasonableness was the issue. I found a voicemail from Darian, left late one night when he thought no one would answer. His voice was casual, almost laughing. "Hey, if Mom asks, tell her I'm doing great. I just need a little more time to figure things out." Time to figure things out. That was Darian's whole philosophy. Delay, avoid, restart, and every time Marla would smooth it over and rewrite history until he was the hero again. I drove to Tessa's apartment the next evening. I did not call ahead. I just needed to see for myself what the last 8 years had looked like for her. She lived in a small complex near the edge of town, the kind of place that was clean but worn, where people worked hard just to stay afloat. I knocked on the door, and when she opened it, I saw the exhaustion in her face before she could hide it. "Evan," she said. She sounded surprised. "I got your message," I said. She nodded and stepped aside to let me in. The apartment was small, neat. There were toys in a basket by the couch and a school backpack hanging on a hook by the door. The place smelled like someone had just cooked dinner on a budget. Tessa crossed her arms, not in anger, just in self-protection. "I'm sorry to drag you into this. I needed to know if you were going to help him lie." "I'm not," I said. She blinked. "You're not?" "No." She sat down slowly on the edge of the couch, like her legs had stopped working properly. "Why?" "Because it's wrong," I said. "And because Milo deserves better." She looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something in her expression that I had not expected. Not gratitude, not relief, just a kind of weary recognition, like she had stopped expecting anyone to be on her side a long time ago. "Darian and your mother have a lawyer," she said. "They're going to say I kept Milo away from him. They're going to say I was unstable. They're going to say he tried to help and I wouldn't let him." "Do you have proof that he didn't try?" I asked. "Some," she said. "But it's hard. He was careful. He never put anything in writing. He just disappeared." I nodded. "I have messages, and I remember dates. I worked nights the whole time. I remember when he left, and when he said he'd be back. I remember what he told people." Tessa's eyes filled with tears, but she did not cry. She just took a slow breath and nodded. "Thank you." Before I left, I saw Milo for the first time in years. He was doing homework at the kitchen table, a skinny 8-year-old with Darian's dark hair and Tessa's serious eyes. "Milo, this is Evan," Tessa said. "He's your uncle." Milo looked up at me, curious. "Hi." "Hi," I said. "Do you know my dad?" Milo asked. The question hit me harder than I expected. Not angry, not accusatory, just curious, like he was asking about a stranger. "Yeah," I said. "I do." "Is he coming back?" I glanced at Tessa. She was watching me, her expression unreadable. "I don't know," I said, "but I hope he does the right thing." Milo nodded slowly, like that was the answer he had expected. Then he went back to his homework. I left the apartment and sat in my car for a while, staring at the steering wheel. Milo knew Darian's name, but only as a concept. A person who was supposed to exist, but never did. That night, a calendar invite appeared on my phone. It was from an email address I did not recognize, but the subject line was clear. Hearing scheduled, Ketteridge Family Matter. I was not asked if I wanted to be involved. I was just assigned. I opened my laptop and started a new document. I titled it Timeline and began typing. The next Sunday, I ended up at Marla's church. I did not go to church regularly, but she had called me 3 times that morning, insisting I show up for family support. I knew what that meant. Darian would be there, playing the role of the returned son, and I was expected to stand nearby and look supportive. The church had a large foyer with polished floors and too many people who smiled like they were being graded on it. I stood near the coffee table, holding a paper cup I did not want, and watched Darian work the room. He was good at this. He always had been. He shook hands, he laughed at jokes, he listened with his head tilted in that way that made people feel heard. And beside him, Marla glowed with pride, introducing him to anyone who would listen. Calvin Sloan was there. He was one of Marla's closest friends from the congregation, a loud man in his mid-40s who treated every conversation like a sermon. He had opinions about everything, and he delivered them with the confidence of someone who believed God personally agreed with him. Calvin spotted me and walked over, his smile wide, but his eyes assessing. "Evan, good to see you here, brother." I nodded. Calvin. "Your mom tells me Darian's back in town," Calvin said. "That's a real blessing. Family reunions are sacred, you know. Second chances, forgiveness. That's what it's all about." "Sure," I said. Calvin leaned in closer, lowering his voice like we were sharing a secret. "I hear there's some legal trouble with the ex. That's tough, but you know how it is. Some women just can't let go. They want control. They want to punish a man for trying to move on with his life." I looked at him. "You've met Tessa?" No, Calvin said quickly. "But I've heard the stories, and I know Darian. He's a good guy. He just needs support right now. Family has to stick together, right?" "Right," I said, because arguing with Calvin was like arguing with a wall. After the service, Marla pulled me aside into a side hallway. Darian was talking to someone near the sanctuary doors, still performing. "Evan, I need to talk to you," Marla said. Her voice was low and serious. I waited. "This court thing with Tessa is important," she said. "Darian needs to clear his name. He needs to show that he was never the bad guy, that she made things impossible." "Is that what he's trying to do?" I asked. Marla's face tightened. "Don't start, Evan. I know you have opinions, but this is family. Darian is your brother. You owe him loyalty." "What about Milo?" I asked. "What do I owe him?" Marla waved a hand dismissively. "Milo is fine. Tessa is taking care of him. This is about Darian's reputation, about his future. If he has this legal mess hanging over him, he'll never be able to move forward." "Maybe he should have thought about that before he ran," I said. Marla's eyes went cold. "You've always been like this, critical, judgmental. You don't know what Darian went through. You don't know the pressure he was under." "I know he left," I said. "I know he ignored a child for 8 years. He was confused," Marla snapped. "He needed space. And Tessa could have been more understanding, but instead she made everything harder." I stared at her. I had heard this script so many times that I could recite it. Every excuse, every deflection, every way she turned Darian's choices into someone else's fault. "I'm not lying in court," I said quietly. Marla's face flushed. "No one is asking you to lie. We're asking you to tell the truth, the whole truth, not just Tessa's version." "That is what I'm planning to do," I said. Marla studied me for a long moment, and I saw something shift in her expression. Not anger, calculation. "You know," she said slowly, "I've helped you over the years. When you needed a place to stay during that rough patch, when you needed money to fix your car, when you needed a reference for your job. I've always been there for you, Evan." "I know," I said. "Family helps family," she continued. "That's how it works. You help me, I help you. You support Darian, and we all move forward together." I understood what she was doing. It was not subtle. She was reminding me of debts. She was framing loyalty as a transaction. "I'll tell the truth," I repeated. Marla's smile was thin. "Just remember who's been there for you, Evan. That's all I'm saying." Later that day, I stopped at a bank ATM to withdraw cash. As I stood there waiting for the machine to process, Marla's car pulled into the parking lot. She got out, saw me, and walked over. "Evan," she said, "I was just thinking about you." "Marla," I said. She looked around, as if checking that we were alone, then spoke in a quieter voice. "I'm paying for Darian's lawyer. It's expensive, really expensive, but it's worth it because this is important. Family is important." She paused, letting that hang in the air. "I just want you to know that I'm investing in this," she continued. "And when people invest in something, they expect support. They expect loyalty. You understand?" I took my cash from the machine and put it in my wallet. "I understand." "Good," Marla said. She patted my arm like I was a child who had finally learned his lesson. "I knew you'd come around. She walked back to her car, and I stood there in the ATM vestibule, feeling the weight of what she had just done. She had not threatened me. She had not yelled. She had just made it clear that my loyalty was expected, and that disloyalty would come with a cost. That evening, Darian called me. "Hey, man," he said, his voice warm and casual. "You got a minute?" "Sure," I said. "I wanted to thank you," Darian said, "for being there, for supporting me through this. It means a lot, you know? Family is everything." "Uh-huh," I said. "Listen, I know this court thing is going to be weird," Darian continued, "but it's just procedure, just paperwork. Tessa's lawyers are making a big deal out of nothing, and we just need to set the record straight." "What record?" I asked. "The truth," Darian said. "That I wanted to be there for Milo, that I tried, that Tessa made it impossible." I did not respond. "Evan, I need you with me on this," Darian said, and his voice had shifted slightly. The warmth was still there, but underneath it was something sharper. "I need to know you've got my back." "I'll tell the truth," I said. There was a pause on the other end of the line. "What does that mean?" "It means I'll tell the truth," I repeated. Darian laughed, but it sounded forced. "Of course, man. That's all I'm asking. Just tell them what you know. Tell them that Tessa was difficult, that she had conditions, that she pushed me away." "Is that what happened?" I asked. "Evan," Darian said, and now the sharpness was more obvious. "Don't do this. Don't overthink it. You're my brother. You're supposed to be on my side." "I am on the side of what's right," I said. "What's right?" Darian's voice was rising now. "What's right is family. What's right is not letting Tessa destroy me because she's bitter. What's right is you having my back." "I'll tell the truth," I said again. Darian was silent for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was cold. "You know, people are going to ask questions about you, about why you're doing this. They're going to wonder if you have some kind of grudge, if you're jealous, if you're trying to settle some score because you've always been the boring, invisible brother." "Maybe," I said. "You really want to do this?" Darian asked. "You really want to turn against your own family?" "I'm not turning against anyone," I said. "I'm just not lying for you anymore." Darian hung up. I sat in my kitchen, staring at my phone, and felt something settle inside me. Not anger, not fear, just clarity. I knew what I was going to do, and I knew there would be consequences. I opened my laptop and continued working on the timeline. I added dates, I added messages, I added every detail I could remember. I made notes about Darian's claims and where they did not match reality. I was not building a weapon. I was just organizing facts. But I knew that in the right setting, facts could be devastating. Later that night, I found an old voicemail from Darian. I had saved it without really thinking about it, just part of my habit of never deleting anything. I played it back. Darian's voice was casual, almost laughing. "Hey, Evan. Just wanted to give you a heads up. If Mom asks where I am, tell her I'm doing great. I'm working on some opportunities out here. I'll be back when I'm ready. Don't let Tessa guilt trip you about anything. She'll be fine. She's tougher than she looks." The voicemail was dated 2 months after Milo was born. I saved it again, carefully labeling it this time. The next morning, I found a small envelope on my doorstep. No return address. Inside was a single printed screenshot. It was a message thread between Darian and someone I did not recognize. The date was from 5 years ago. In the messages, Darian was joking about laying low and letting things cool off. He made a reference to avoiding legal drama and waiting until the statute runs out. Someone wanted me to have this. Someone wanted me to know that Darian's disappearance was not accidental. It was strategic. I put the screenshot in a folder and went to work. 2 days later, I met Nadia Vance at a coffee shop near the industrial park where we both worked. Nadia was in her early 30s, sharp and efficient, and she worked in an HR-adjacent role that gave her a front-row seat to every workplace dispute and bureaucratic process in the company. She was also the only person I trusted to give me honest advice without judgment. I told her the situation. Not all of it, but enough. Nadia listened, stirring her coffee slowly, and when I finished, she nodded. "Okay," she said. "So you're going to testify?" "Yeah," I said, "and your family is going to hate you for it." "Probably," I said. Nadia sipped her coffee and looked at me with the kind of calm assessment she used when dealing with employee conflicts. "Here's the thing, Evan. If you're going to do this, you need to do it right. You can't just show up and rant about how your brother is a jerk. Courts don't care about feelings. They care about facts, dates, sequences, proof." "I have proof," I said. "Good," Nadia said. "But you need to organize it. You need a timeline. You need everything written down in clear, neutral language. No emotion, no accusations. Just this happened, then this happened, then this happened." "That's what I've been doing," I said. "Show me," Nadia said. I opened my laptop and showed her the document I had been building. She read through it carefully, occasionally asking questions or suggesting clarifications. "This is good," she said finally. "But you need to make sure everything is verifiable. If you say Darian left on a specific date, can you prove it? Do you have messages, receipts, anything that shows you're not just guessing?" "I have messages," I said. "And I have work records. I can cross-reference when things happened based on my shift schedules." Nadia nodded. "That's smart. Work records are hard to dispute. They're neutral. They don't care about family drama." She leaned back in her chair and looked at me seriously. "You know they're going to try to discredit you, right? They're going to say you're bitter, that you have a grudge, that you're jealous of your brother." "I know," I said. "Can you handle that?" Nadia asked. "Can you sit there and let them call you petty and vindictive and not lose your temper?" "I think so," I said. "You can't think so," Nadia said. "You have to know. Because the moment you get emotional, you lose credibility. You become the angry brother with an axe to grind. But if you stay calm and just state facts, you're the reliable witness who has no reason to lie." I nodded slowly. "I can do that." "Good," Nadia said. She closed my laptop and pushed it back toward me. "One more thing. Don't share this timeline with anyone before the hearing. Not Tessa, not your family, no one. The moment you start showing it around, it becomes a thing people can prepare for. You want it to be new information in the courtroom." "Okay," I said. Nadia finished her coffee and stood up. "You're doing the right thing, Evan, but it's gonna suck. Just be ready for that." Over the next few days, I continued building the timeline. I went through old family photos on social media and noted the dates. I checked old work schedules to confirm where I was and when. I reviewed every message Darian had sent, every excuse he had made, every promise he had broken. I did not do this with anger. I did it with the same methodical care I used when managing inventory at the warehouse. Check, double-check, verify. I also kept notes on the things people said, Marla's phone calls, Calvin's comments at church, Darian's attempts to control the narrative. I did not write them down as accusations. I just noted when they happened and what was said. At work, I pulled up my old scheduling records. I had worked the night shift consistently for the past 9 years. I could pinpoint exactly when I had taken time off, when I had covered extra shifts, when I had been too exhausted to think straight. I remembered the night Tessa called me from the hospital. I had been halfway through a shift, and I had left early to be there. I checked the records. It was all there. Dates, times, clock-out notes. I remembered the family dinner where Darian announced he was leaving town. It had been during a holiday weekend. I checked the calendar, confirmed. Every piece fell into place. Meanwhile, Darian was getting more confident. He posted on social media about new beginnings and clearing up old misunderstandings. He tagged Marla in photos at family dinners. He made vague references to legal matters that would soon be resolved. The comments were full of support, friends and relatives congratulating him, telling him to stay strong, saying that the truth would come out, and it would. just not the truth he was expecting. One evening, I drove back to Tessa's apartment. I did not call ahead. I just needed to see her again, to make sure she knew I was serious. She opened the door, surprised again. "Evan?" "I'm not going to let them lie," I said. Tessa stepped aside and let me in. Milo was at the kitchen table again, coloring this time. He looked up and waved. "Hi, Uncle Evan," he said. "Hi, Milo," I said. Tessa gestured for me to sit on the couch. She sat across from me, her expression guarded. "What are you going to say in court?" "The truth," I said. "The timeline, the facts, everything I remember." "Why?" Tessa asked. "Why are you doing this? You don't owe me anything." "I owe Milo," I said. "And I owe myself. I've spent my whole life covering for Darian. I'm done." Tessa looked at me for a long moment, and then she did something I did not expect. She smiled. Not a big smile, just a small, sad, grateful expression. "Thank you," she said. Before I left, Milo called out to me. "Uncle Evan?" I turned. "Yeah? Do you think my dad will come to my birthday?" Milo asked. Tessa froze. I walked over to the table and crouched down so I was at Milo's eye level. "I don't know, buddy, but I hope he does the right thing." Milo nodded. "Me too." As I drove home, I thought about all the birthdays Darian had missed, all the promises he had broken, all the ways he had treated Milo like an afterthought. And I thought about how easy it would be to just stay quiet, to let Darian rewrite history, to let Marla smooth everything over, to be the reliable, invisible brother who never caused trouble. But Milo's question stayed with me. That simple, heartbreaking hope that maybe, just maybe, his father would show up. Darian would not show up. Not in the way Milo needed. But I could. I could show up for the truth. That night, I received a message request from an unknown social media account. I opened it. "Need to talk. Tomorrow night. Don't tell anyone." It was from Darian. I did not respond immediately. I just stared at the message and felt the trap closing. But I knew I had to go. I had to hear what he was planning. I had to see how desperate he was getting. I replied, "Where?" He sent me an address, a coffee shop parking lot, 8 p.m. I set an alarm and went to bed. I had a feeling tomorrow was going to be a long day. The coffee shop Darian chose was on the edge of town, one of those generic chain places with wide windows and too bright lighting. I arrived 5 minutes early and parked where I could see the entrance. Darian pulled in exactly at 8 p.m., driving a car I did not recognize, probably borrowed. He got out, looked around, and walked toward my car. I rolled down the window. "Get out," he said. "We need to talk." I got out and stood facing him in the parking lot. The air was cool, and there was a faint smell of rain coming. Darian looked tired. The confident mask was slipping. "What do you want?" I asked. Darian laughed, but it was not his usual smooth laugh. It was sharp and bitter. "What do I want? I want my brother to stop sabotaging me." "I'm not sabotaging you," I said. "I'm just not helping you lie." "Same thing," Darian said. "Look, Evan, I know you think you're doing the right thing here. I know you think you're some kind of hero. But you're not. You're just making everything worse." "For who?" I asked. "For everyone." Darian's voice was rising. "For me, for Mom, for the family. You think Tessa is going to win this? You think she's going to get some big payout? She's not. This is just going to drag everyone through the mud for no reason." "Maybe you should have thought about that before you ran," I said. Darian stepped closer, and I saw real anger in his eyes now. "You've always been like this, always judging me, always acting like you're better than me because you follow the rules and show up on time and do what you're supposed to do. But you know what? That's easy for you. You don't have dreams, you don't take risks, you just exist." "And you run," I said. "That's your thing. You start something, mess it up, and then run away, and Mom fixes it, and you come back and do it again." Darian clenched his fists. "This is different." "Is it?" I asked. Because it looks exactly the same to me. Darian took a breath, trying to calm himself. He switched tactics, his voice softening. Evan, listen. I know I messed up. I know I wasn't there. But I'm trying to make it right now. I'm trying to be better. And I need your help. You're not trying to make it right, I said. You're trying to erase what you did. There's a difference. Fine, Darian said, his voice hardening again. Fine. You want to do this? You want to testify against me? Go ahead. But understand something, Evan. When you walk into that courtroom and you start talking, you're not just hurting me, you're hurting Mom. You're hurting the whole family. I'm telling the truth, I said. Your truth, Darian shot back. Your biased, bitter, jealous version of the truth. You've always resented me. You've always been jealous that Mom loves me more. And now you're using this as a way to finally get back at me. If that's what you need to believe, I said. Darian stared at me, and I saw something break in his expression. Not sadness, rage. You know what? He said quietly. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you are. I'm going to tell them you're doing this because you're jealous. Because you've always been the boring, forgettable brother, and you can't stand that I'm the one people remember. Okay, I said. I'm going to make sure they know you're unstable, Darian continued, that you have a grudge, that you're not reliable. By the time I'm done, no one is going to believe a word you say. We'll see, I said. Darian turned and walked back to his car. Before he got in, he looked back at me one last time. You're making a mistake, Evan, he said. Then he drove away. I stood there in the parking lot for a while, letting the adrenaline drain out of my system. My hands were shaking slightly, but I felt strangely calm. The next morning, Marla called. I did not answer. She called again and again. Finally, I picked up. Evan, she said, her voice tight. We need to talk. What about? I asked. You know what about, Marla said. Darian told me you're planning to testify against him. Is that true? I'm planning to testify truthfully, I said. Marla made a sound somewhere between a gasp and a sob. How could you do this? How could you betray your own brother? I'm not betraying anyone, I said. I'm just not covering for him. You're destroying this family, Marla said, her voice shaking. You're tearing us apart. And for what? For that woman? For a child you barely know? For the truth, I said. The truth? Marla laughed bitterly. You don't care about the truth. You care about making yourself feel important. You care about finally being the center of attention for once in your pathetic life. I did not respond. I have done everything for you, Marla continued. I raised you. I supported you. I helped you when you had nothing. And this is how you repay me? I'm grateful for everything you did, I said quietly. But that doesn't mean I have to lie for Darian. If you do this, Marla said, her voice dropping to something cold and final, you are no longer part of this family. Do you understand me? You walk into that courtroom and you testify against your brother, and you are done. No more family dinners, no more holidays, no more phone calls. You are nothing to us anymore. Okay, I said. There was a long silence. That's it? Marla said. That's all you have to say? What else is there? I asked. Marla hung up. I sat on my couch, staring at my phone, and felt the weight of what had just happened. I had just been disowned by my own mother. Officially. Permanently. And I felt relief. The hearing was scheduled for the following Monday, 3 days away. I spent those 3 days double-checking everything. I reviewed the timeline. I made sure every date was accurate. I practiced staying calm and speaking clearly. Nadia called to check on me. You ready? As ready as I can be, I said. Remember, she said. Facts only, no emotion, no drama. Just this happened, then this happened. I know, I said. And Evan, Nadia said, I'm proud of you. That probably doesn't mean much, but I am. It means something, I said. On Sunday night, I barely slept. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. All the years of silence, all the times I had let Darian get away with it. All the times I had been the reliable, invisible brother. Tomorrow, I would be visible. Tomorrow, I would matter. At 6 a.m., I got up, showered, and put on the only suit I owned. I made coffee but could not drink it. I checked my phone and saw dozens of messages from family members, all telling me variations of the same thing. Don't do this. Think about the family. You're making a mistake. I turned my phone on silent and put it in my pocket. At 8 a.m., I drove to the county courthouse. The building was old and imposing with tall columns and stone steps. I parked in the lot and sat in my car for a moment, gathering myself. I saw Tessa arrive with Milo. She looked nervous but determined. Milo was wearing his best clothes and he looked very small. I saw Darian arrive with Marla. They were dressed well, confident, ready to perform. I got out of my car and walked toward the courthouse entrance. Marla saw me and her face hardened. She said something to Darian, and he turned and looked at me with pure hatred. I walked past them without saying anything. Inside, the courthouse was busy. People in suits, people in work clothes, people with folders and briefcases and scared expressions. The air smelled like floor polish and old paper. I found the correct courtroom and sat on a bench in the hallway, waiting. Tessa came and sat beside me. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. "I had to," I said. Darian and Marla appeared at the end of the hallway. They were talking to a lawyer, a tall man in an expensive suit who nodded seriously at everything they said. Calvin showed up, because of course he did. He stood with Marla and Darian, his arms crossed, glaring at me like I was a criminal. A clerk came out and called for our case. "Ketteridge matter, courtroom 3. We all stood and filed inside. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, a judge's bench, rows of seats. Everything felt official and cold and final. I sat down and waited. This was it. No going back now. The hearing officer was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and the kind of expression that suggested she had seen every version of family drama and was not impressed by any of it. She reviewed the files in front of her, made some notes, and then looked up. "This is a motion to modify support obligations in the matter of Ketteridge," she said. Her voice was flat and procedural. "Mr. Ketteridge, you are requesting a reduction or elimination of arrears and a modification of current support. Is that correct?" Darian's lawyer stood. "Yes, Your Honor." "And Ms. Rowan, you are opposing this motion. Is that correct?" Tessa's lawyer, a tired-looking woman with a worn briefcase, stood. "Yes, Your Honor." The hearing officer nodded. "We'll begin with testimony. Mr. Ketteridge, you may present your case." Darian's lawyer called him to the stand. Darian walked up confidently, raised his right hand, and swore to tell the truth. Then he sat down and launched into his story. It was smooth, polished. He talked about how he had wanted to be involved in Milo's life, how he had tried to maintain contact, how Tessa had made things difficult with conditions and demands. He used words like impossible situation and unreasonable expectations. He made himself sound like a victim. I watched the hearing officer's face. She was listening, but I could not tell what she was thinking. Darian's lawyer asked him about the years he was absent. Darian explained that he had been working out of state, trying to build stability, so he could provide for his son. He said he had sent money when he could, though he admitted there was no record of it. He said he had tried to call, but Tessa would not answer. It was a master class in rewriting history. Then Darian's lawyer called Marla to the stand. Marla took the oath with her hand on her heart, looking appropriately solemn. She testified about how much Darian loved his son, how hard it had been for him to be away, how Tessa had been difficult and controlling from the start. "Darian tried everything," Marla said, her voice quavering with emotion. But Tessa just wanted to punish him. She wanted to keep Milo away from his father. The hearing officer made notes. Then Tessa's lawyer stood up. I'd like to call Evan Ketteridge to the stand. Darian's face went pale. I stood up and walked to the witness stand. I raised my right hand and swore to tell the truth. Then I sat down and looked at the hearing officer. Tessa's lawyer approached. Mr. Ketteridge, you are the brother of Darian Ketteridge. Is that correct? Yes, I said. And you were present during the period when your brother and Ms. Rowan were in a relationship? Yes, I said. Can you tell us what you observed during that time? I took a breath and began. I told them about the timeline. I gave exact dates. I explained that I worked the night shift at a warehouse and could verify my schedule through company records. I told them about the night Milo was born, how Darian had promised to be there, how he was not, how I drove to the hospital instead. I told them about the family dinner where Darian announced he was leaving town temporarily. I gave the date. I explained that he said it would be 1 month, then changed it to 6 months, then stopped giving time frames at all. I told them about the messages, the voicemail where Darian joked about laying low, the texts where he asked me to cover for him with Marla. I pulled out my phone and showed the receipts, the timeline document, the messages, the dates. Tessa's lawyer projected them on a screen. Darian's confident posture began to crumble. I told them about the years of silence, how Darian did not call, did not write, did not send money, how Marla made excuses and blamed Tessa, but how the facts showed a pattern of deliberate avoidance. I told them about the recent return, how Darian came back not to make amends, but to erase his responsibility, how he and Marla recruited family members to pressure me into supporting their version of events. I told them about the meeting in the parking lot, the threats, the attempts to control my testimony. I told them everything, in calm, neutral language, no emotion, no accusations, just this happened, then this happened, then this happened. Darian's lawyer tried to object several times, but the hearing officer waved him off. I want to hear this, she said. When I finished, there was silence in the courtroom. Darian's lawyer stood up for cross-examination. Mr. Ketteridge, isn't it true that you have always been jealous of your brother? No, I said. Isn't it true that you resent him because your mother favored him? That's true, I said, but it doesn't change the facts. Isn't it true that you have a grudge against him? I have a responsibility to tell the truth, I said. That's all. The lawyer tried a few more angles, but I stayed calm and repeated the facts. I did not get emotional. I did not get defensive. I just stated what happened. Finally, the lawyer gave up and sat down. The hearing officer looked at Darian. Mr. Ketteridge, do you have any documentation to support your claim that you tried to maintain contact with your son? Darian opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Do you have any records of financial support sent during the years you were absent? It was cash, Darian said weakly. There's no record. Do you have any witnesses who can verify your attempts to contact Ms. Rowan? Darian looked at Marla. She looked back helplessly. The hearing officer made a note and then looked up. Mr. Ketteridge, based on the evidence presented here today, I find that your motion to modify support obligations is denied. The arrears remain in full. Additionally, I am referring this matter to enforcement for review of potential sanctions. Darian's face went white. You have demonstrated a pattern of deliberate avoidance, the hearing officer continued. You failed to meet your obligations for 8 years. You made no documented attempts to contact your child or provide support, and you returned only when you believed you could manipulate the legal system to erase your responsibility. She looked at Marla. Mrs. Ketteridge, while I understand your desire to support your son, I would caution you that assisting someone in avoiding their legal obligations is not support. It is enabling. Marla's face crumpled. The hearing officer looked at Tessa. Ms. Rowan, the existing support order remains in effect. Enforcement will contact you regarding collection of arrears. Tessa nodded, tears streaming down her face. The hearing officer closed the file. This matter is concluded. Next case. A clerk called out a number. People began to stand and file out. I walked past Darian without looking at him. I heard him say something, his voice desperate, but I did not stop. I walked past Marla, who was crying openly now, supported by Calvin. I walked out of the courtroom and into the hallway. Tessa was waiting there. She grabbed my arm. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you." I nodded. "Take care of Milo." "I will," she said. I walked down the courthouse steps and into the parking lot. The sun was bright, and the air smelled like rain that had not yet fallen. Behind me, I heard the courthouse doors open. I heard Darian's voice, sharp and broken. "Evan!" I turned. He was standing at the top of the steps, his face red and twisted. "You destroyed me!" he shouted. "You destroyed everything!" I looked at him for a long moment. Then I spoke, quietly but clearly. "No," I said. "You did that yourself. I just made sure everyone knew." His face went blank. The mask finally dropped completely. He looked like a stranger. I turned and walked to my car. I got in, started the engine, and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I saw Darian still standing on the courthouse steps, motionless, as the world continued around him without his permission.